Hello, my name is Jenna. This is Books Love Jenna, as in those books they just love her. And I am here to wrap up Mary Shelley May, which I loosely host every single year. Have done, I think this was my 4th year of doing it, maybe 5th, I think 4th. And I'm here to wrap it up. Oh, I failed my own initiative. May was a recovery month for me. It's also a really busy school year month for me. And I was reading other things and I was doing other things. I was so busy. April and May have been whirlwinds. I still have a week and a half left to teach. And it's the end of the school year and things are wild. And I failed my own Mary Shelley May. I did read 3 things, however. I did read Frankenstein. I did read Transformation. And also in Transformation here, I reread The Mortal Immortal, which was the group read for the month. So let's talk a little bit about these. I'm not going to say a ton about Frankenstein here because I've talked about Frankenstein before, for sure. You can go back and look at other Mary Shelley May videos and hear quite a lot about Frankenstein. But I also feel like at this point, I just really don't have all that much new to add to the Frankenstein loving community. And so I'm not going to focus too much on Frankenstein, but I will say that this time, as I've just established, is an incredibly busy month, and I was trying to read it when I was home physically and then listen to it on audio while I was commuting to and from work. And I own and prefer to read the 1818 version of Frankenstein, but the only versions I could find on audio were the Victorian version. And so I was listening to the later version and reading the current version. And although the story is the same, the language is incredibly different. Her sentence structure is different. The amount of backstory she has on things is different. Just the sheer amount of words is different. And for the first time, I was really thinking about Mary Shelley as a writer. And how, I wonder, did it feel painful to have to edit in a bunch of extra just to please the Victorian audience? The audio version that I was listening to, the Victorian version, is very Victorian, and this is not. This has a bit more of a wildness to it, a bit more of a vulnerability to it, a bit more of a youthfulness to the writing. The writing is a little bit more loose. There's things that you don't anticipate. There's harsh corners and in the Victorian version, it is very Victorian. It's very different. And I just think that I never, although I had read both versions, I think that I never really thought of how it must have felt to Mary Shelley to change her actual book for a different audience, and what that process might have been like. And which one did she feel better about? I don't know. I feel better about the 1818 version. I prefer it greatly. Even though it's not the first version I read of Frankenstein, I prefer the 1818 a lot. It's a lot faster, in my opinion. It moves at more of a speed, more of a pace, in my opinion. And it would be a very interesting study to think about revision and editing. I wonder if a class could be built around a careful reading for revision practice and editing of the 2 Frankenstein versions. If you've only ever read one, if you've only read Frankenstein once, you've only read one of the versions. Find out which one it was and go back and read the other one and compare and contrast. They're quite different. Same story, totally different feel. Totally different feel. I also, however, read Transformation, which I will talk more at length about right now, and reread The Mortal Immortal, which I will also talk more about. Transformation. It's a little short story, which I kind of refer to in my mind now as Shakespeare fanfic, because there's so many ideas drawn from Shakespeare. There's so many things. It takes place in Italy. The female heroine's name is Juliet. There is a storm, like the Tempest. There's a lot in here that feels a lot like a lot of Shakespeare. And it's not a direct retelling of anything. It's just like an ode. It's kind of like an ode. In this story, you have the main character. His name is Guido, not Romeo. His name is Guido. And he had a rich father, and he was raised in such a way that he's a good guy, but he's also very indulgent of himself. And when his father dies, he goes on a tour of Europe, a grand tour, which was a very common thing to do. So he goes on a tour, leaving behind a young girl who he's in love with, Juliet, who he grew up with, who they have made vows to. They made informal vows in childhood, and then on his father's deathbed, they made formal vows. Father drew up a contract with the other family, and there are certain things that need to be honored as far as inheritance, etc. So, and what Guido will bring to the marriage. So he's off indulging himself in all sorts of hedonistic things. The main one that really affects him in this story, though, is his love of spending money. He just spends it so freely. And he kind of thinks that there's no end to it, because he's slowly selling off all of these many properties that he inherited. He spends all the money he inherited. He sells all the jewels that he inherited, and he starts to sell off properties to the point where he doesn't have any properties left. He sells the last one, and in selling the last one decides, okay, it's time to return home to Juliet, marry her so that I can access her money. He loves her. He does. But also, he's run out of funding. And this is a dude who doesn't know what to do with himself when he doesn't have funding to spend excessively on whatever he wants whenever he wants it. So he spends the money on frivolous things, like he gets a horse and has this really intricate like blanket for the horse embroidered with like all gold and jewels and stuff, and all over it are the intertwining letters G and J for Guido and Juliet. But in order to make this, he has to spend almost all the money. He travels back that he made from the sale of this property, which he needed the money so quickly that he took a terrible deal and didn't get even close to the value of the property. He returns home, but he's it's kind of turned into a jerk a little bit. He loves Juliet. He really does. But he's so self-important. He's so used to having his own way. He's so used to getting his own way. He's not used to the word no. When it becomes clear to the father that the contract that he and Guido's father made cannot be honored because Guido has sold all of the items that were incorporated into that contract, he offers, knowing that Guido loves Juliet, and Juliet loves Guido, the father-in-law offers to fund their life as long as Guido agrees to certain terms. Mainly that he will stop overspending, that he will commit to finding a wholesome purpose for his life, and that he will stop all his hedonistic ways. And Guido doesn't want to agree to the terms. And so his father-in-law is like, well, then you can't marry my daughter and you can't have my money, so go away. Some things happen and he gets kicked out of the town. And he goes and he's basically lying on the beach, just waiting to die, basically. And there's a storm and a shipwreck. And from the shipwreck floats in on this chest, this chest full of gold and jewels, this weird being, this deformed human maybe, or maybe a demon, or who knows what. There's this being, and the being seems to be the one that controlled the storm. And the being makes him an offer. You can have all the gold in this chest that I just rode in from the sea on in exchange for me being able to live in your unharmed, totally normal, really kind of cute and fetching body for 3 days, and you will live in mine for 3 days. And Guido agrees. 3 days pass, and the beast doesn't come back. More days pass, and Guido is pretty distraught. He's in this body that he can't get out of. Sure, he has all this gold, but he can't get the things that he wants in this body. And he goes to find his father-in-law and Juliet. And when he gets there, weirdly at their summer home, their vacation home, when he gets there, and it's been quite a journey because he's physically put in danger because of the way that his body looks. And he also cannot maneuver very, he's used to being in this young, spry, handsome body, and he's no longer young, spry, nor handsome. And he can't really maneuver physically. There's physical limitations to what he can do. And so it's quite a journey to get to them. When he gets there, he realizes that Juliet thinks that the demon inside his body is Guido. She's reunited with Guido. Guido has ingratiated himself back into the family, promised all sorts of things, and the demon in Guido's body is about to marry Juliet. And things happen from there. Things happen from there. It's a pretty fun little story. Remember, this is all like a 30-page story. It's a fun little story, and it's really, really well written. Really well written. Mortal Immortal, which was supposed to be our group read for this Mary Shelley May, is another short story, one that I read last year, that I reread this year, that I really, really love. It feels very much like a fable or fairy tale. It's about this alchemist, an alchemist in training who works for a real alchemist. And he's in love with a girl who's super, super spoiled. She wants him to be more than he is. And there's a little mistake done with a spell where things don't go the way that anybody wants them to go. He kind of becomes... Well, there's an element of immortality. There's an element of be careful what you wish for because you just might get it. And it's a delight. If you haven't read any of her shorter work, I strongly suggest that you do. There's another one. There's a third one in here, The Invisible Girl, which I've never read before, which I'm really excited to dive into at some point. But for now, I have to admit that I failed Mary Shelley May. I did watch the Daniel Radcliffe Victor Frankenstein movie, and it was okay. It wasn't great. It was fine. But I didn't do any reading of biographies or any inspired works or anything. And I really didn't discuss any of it with anybody. I was just trying to make it through the month of May. But I did read a few things, and that is the whole purpose and goal of Mary Shelley May, is just to get Mary out there, get people reading her, bring her back into, the mainstream of authors that people reach for. She's got other longer works. They aren't In my opinion, they aren't as alive as Frankenstein, but they're still really good. If you've never read The Last Man, for example, strongly recommend The Last Man. I might next year, because my workload, we've kind of been told a little bit of what we'll be teaching and doing next year, and my workload, while not lighter, will be totally different. I'll be doing more teaching, less administrative stuff, and for me, that's a lot more accessible, a lot easier. A lot less emotionally taxing. And so I definitely will have more headspace and fewer extra responsibilities, unlike the last 2 years. And so I'm thinking that next year, plan now, I'm thinking that next year, I'm going to maybe lead a reading with weekly check-ins of one of her longer, lesser read works. Maybe Mathilde or Fisher's Cot, which are very accessible, or maybe we'll do something really big like Lador or Valperga. Valperga. Not an easy read. So I'm thinking of maybe doing something a little bit more elaborate and a little bit more accessible with Mary Shelley May next year. If that's something you'd be interested in, let me know, and I can really start planning and working on that, and do more than just open it up for people to read and be more aware of her, as I've done for the last few years. Normally I just do like a bingo board and say read, and that's been fine. But I think maybe next year might be the year to do something a little bit more elaborate. And so if that's something you might be interested in, let me know, and I will get into the work for that. Otherwise, for now, if you read anything from Mary Shelley in the month of May, let me know down in the comments. And until we meet again, let's go read.